Obviously working with Jonathan Church was another...
Your first time?
Yeah, first time working with him. And also the choreographer, Andrew Wright, who I hadn't worked with, but I'd heard lots of good things about him. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to do it and work with these great people. Also the cast that we had originally were great as well. Scarlett Strallen and Danny Crosby, two other great performers. So I knew it would be good. So I thought I must do it. But when we started, we were just doing 3 months in Chichester, and that was the end. There was no plans to take it to the West End.
So many good productions go from there to West
They
End.
do, yeah. And so it was a lovely surprise at the end when we were told that it was going into the West End, and it made it even more exciting.
That would be bound to go with you in it and the Singing in the Rain itself.
Well, you can never be sure, really, because you can never tell what an audience wants to see, and you can never tell if there's a producer who's willing to put money in, because these shows are very expensive to put on.
Yes, I bet.
The amount of people in it, the size of orchestra, the set, it costs a lot of money. So, but we were thrilled that there seemed to be quite a lot of producers who were interested in bringing it into London. We ended up at, I think, the best theatre in London, the Palace Theatre, and having sort of the big cutout outside of the theatre with the umbrella and everything was fantastic. There's always a little bit of pressure because the film is so famous, especially the Singing in the Rain sequence. It's so famous. But having talked with Jonathan and the choreographer Andrew about how we were going to do those sequences, it became clear to me that what we were doing was something new with it and something fresh and original. And I think you have to forget about all the past ones and just bring yourself to the production and what you can bring to the role, and kind of forget about all that and just hope that the audience will forget Gene Kelly for those 3 hours and say, oh, look, Adam Cooper singing in the rain. It's very similar in terms of the structure of the show, but the choreography is very different, and I think just the approach to it is very different.
Numbers are different?
They're pretty much the same. I think there's one extra song for Lena in the second act, which isn't in the film. And there's one song in Act 1, we do You Stepped Out of a Dream, which isn't in the film. Because in the film, Gene Kelly jumps into a car with Debbie Reynolds, but of course on stage that's difficult to do. So we do a scene which is set in a park, where I start singing to her, to Kathy, and a new song. But other than that, it's pretty much the same structurally. But of course, we wanted to bring the 21st century to it. So all the choreography is new, and the way that we tried to tell the story is in a 21st century way. Andrew has done a flavour of the 20s, but he's brought it up to date, so it's a lot more athletic, I think, than the original. Which is always difficult because in the film, of course, they had days to do each number and a lot of rest time between takes, whereas we have to do it, 8 times a week, and it's pretty tiring. It's one of in terms of musical theatre, it's probably the most tiring role I've done, because Act 1, I'm never off the stage, and then Act 2, I have a couple of short breaks, but of course I have Broadway Melody, which is the big ballet number in Act 2, so there's not much time for rest.
And not much time to dry.
No, no, not a lot. I spend a lot of it wet, either wet from rain or wet from sweat.
Do they really get wet, the audience?
At the front they do, yes. When we first did it in Chichester, we gave everybody plastic coats to wear, but it became so distracting. Because in the scene before, we were doing Good Morning, so we do the number Good Morning, and then we have a very quiet scene, and of course all you hear were people putting their Macs on. So that got cut, and then what we did was we just told people that had booked at the front of the theatre that they might get wet. But people would book especially to sit in the front because they loved the fact that they were getting wet. So. Well, I mean, I guess my favourite number to do is the Singing in the Rain number,
Yeah,
the title
sure.
number. And there's two reasons for that. One is that it's an iconic number, but the way that the rain is designed, we have a huge puddle of water on the stage. So it means that the water plays a big part in the choreography. How we splash the water is part of the choreography. And of course that includes splashing the audience at times as well. And just being able to have that communication with the audience in that way is fantastic. You know, you don't often get that on stage in a musical, and you can really, it feels like you're interacting with the audience and seeing their reaction to it.
Any other number that you like? Especially, I'm sure you like them all.
There's so many. I think the other number I love doing is Moses Poses. It's a scene with myself and Cosmo and the elocution teacher. So it all starts up about Don, because he's a silent movie actor, learning how to speak properly for the talkies, and but of course he finds it all a bit boring. So Cosmo enters the scene, and they start playing with words and coming up with steps, and it develops into quite an energetic, fun tap number that they have with the elocution teacher.
So it really takes off as a part of the story.
That's the other reason I like the Singing in the Rain number as well, is because in terms of the story, what's happened to Don, he's found this girl who's unlike any other girl he's ever met before. You know, he's a Hollywood movie star, and he's used to girls sort of falling at his feet, and he can have anyone that he wants. This girl is different because she's an aspiring actress, and she has a bit of attitude about her. So she doesn't give in too easily. He has to fight for her. But of course, at the end of the Good Morning scene is when they first kiss. So it becomes a very special, Singing in the Rain becomes about his expression of joy at falling in love with this girl, as much as it is about the fact that he's singing in the rain and he loves life and everything's going so well for him. So I think it's like all the best numbers of musical theatre, they come from the story, and you can continue that story into the song and then into the dance. I can tell you one thing that happened, which was very funny. It's a good lesson for anybody who wants to watch a performance, and it would never happen in Japan. We had one performance, and in the Palace Theatre there was a central aisle, and then just on the second row, right on the aisle, there was a woman who in Act 2 was on her mobile phone for the whole of Act 2, and we could see because the light was shining on her face,
Right,
so we
yeah.
could see, everybody could see her. So I went back to the stage management and I said, could you ask somebody if she would switch it off, because it's very distracting. And so one of the ushers went to her and said, please would you mind not using your phone? So she put it away, and then it came out again. And then they went again, she put it away, then it came out again. And she was on it for almost the whole of Act 2. So at the end, when we all did the finale, we did our bows, and the entire company came to the front of the stage and splashed her.
Oh, good. And it reached her.
Yeah.
So she was so much in the front.
Yeah. So she got absolutely, completely drenched, like she'd just been in the shower.
She deserves it.
She deserved it. Yeah. It's not often you get a chance to do that sort of thing, but with this show, you can. So beware anybody who's on their mobile
Oh,
phones.
wow. That's
They're incredibly supportive. I mean, what I love about Japan is every time I go, it's with something different. You know, I used to go a lot with the Royal Ballet, so they knew me as a ballet dancer. And then I went and did On Your Toes was there, of course, and that was in something completely different, and they were so warm and appreciative about it. And then I took Dangerous Liaisons there, and again, it amazes me that they kind of accept me doing all these different things, and they're always so supportive of me as a performer. So it's incredible the support I've had from Japan, and which is why I love coming there, and why I wanted to bring this show there is because it's like my second home in terms as a performer, because it's the place where I've performed most in so many different things other than in this country. So I always love coming back. I mean, I used to come pretty much every 2 years. I used to be in Japan. Now it's getting slightly longer because I'm interested to see how it's all changed.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's changed a lot in 5 years.
A lot of talent.
Our Japanese fans often told that the Japanese audience is quiet and don't make reactions.
I've heard that.
And the biggest joke.
I've heard that a lot, but that's not true. Because when we brought On Your Toes to Japan, they were laughing, clapping a lot. I mean, I think it depends what they're watching. You know, they're very concentrated as an audience. You know, in England now, it's terrible because you get people wandering out to go to the toilet or making phone calls or being on their mobile phone. And I think that in England, I find a lot that modern theatre people, or people who don't go to the theatre that much, they treat it almost like going to the cinema or watching TV at home. But Japan, as I say, I haven't been there for 5 years, but whenever I've been there before, they've always been so concentrated on what they're doing. You can feel the energy in the room. And you know, some of the theatres are enormous, but you can really feel the energy, and that's what I find exciting about performing there, is you get a sense of energy from the audience. And sometimes they are very quiet, but then at the end they kind of explode. So yeah, it's a great place to perform. You get a real good feedback from the audience, and they're always so lovely at the stage door afterwards, and yeah, it's a great place to go. I can't wait to see them all. It's been a long time, too long since I've been in Japan, so I just really looking forward to seeing what they think of Singing in the Rain, and hopefully they'll enjoy the joyfulness of the show, and I'll get a lovely feeling being with them again in Japan.